something that like I still tell myself and struggle with, to be honest, as like an Asian American woman. I always have to like tell myself, don't be afraid to take up space and make noise. Like you just, and it's so like something so simple. And I think, there are certain people that don't have to tell themselves that and do it naturally. But like for me, I have to tell myself that every day. And I think that's something that like I wish I like carried with me since I was young.
Welcome back to Have a Map, where we talk all things career. I'm your host, Mamadou Njai, founder of Dim Events. Today, I have Linda, one of our interns, and this internship has gone by so fast, but Linda's calling in from Georgia. So Linda, say what's up, introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah. So I'm calling in from Duluth, Georgia, north of everybody knows Atlanta. I'm currently a sophomore at Northwestern University, and I'm currently majoring journalism.
Very cool. Love that. Love that.
Love it.
We'll hear a little bit about Linda as well. And our guest today is Lauren Kim. Lauren, say what's up. How's it going?
Hey, it's going well as it can really these days. But hey guys, I'm coming to you from Chicago, the quiet suburbs of Chicago, but normally based in New York City.
Beautiful, beautiful. And yeah, Lauren and I met at an event that my girlfriend had at the drugstore, which seems so long ago.
Like in 1990. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
It literally feels like, yeah.
It feels like so long ago. That's when you could literally sit next to people, interact, no mask, have a drink. But yeah. But Lauren, tell us a little bit about what you do, and we can get started from there.
Yeah, for sure. So currently I am a manager in the streaming department at RCA Records, focusing on our hip hop and R&B rosters. So basically, streaming department's fairly new, but we work with all the DSP accounts. So that's like Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Tidal, and just working with them through our artist releases and, helping market our artists and their releases with them. Yeah, that's basically the short form.
Real quick, I just want to I'm happy you said Tidal, because I work with some people and they just give me a lot of grief about Tidal, that I have Tidal.
You listen to Tidal?
I gotta support Black business. That's Jay-Z. I gotta support it, but like,
you're loyal.
I have to get Spotify too, because you just have to get Spotify. So.
Yeah. How about you, Linda? What do you use?
I am a loyal Spotify user. My friends and I have daily arguments about Spotify and Apple Music, but I don't know. I've just had my Spotify account since like middle school. There's so much dirt buried in my account that I just can't let go of it at this point.
Right. You're locked in.
Yeah. Locked in for life.
That's so interesting. You just saying that, like middle school. My middle school journey was I didn't have Spotify. I had a Walkman and I had to download illegal CDs. So wow.
No.
Shout out to LimeWire. Honestly.
LimeWire, all the songs.
I'm just kidding. That was a joke, just for this recording.
That was a joke. We cut that out. We'll cut that part out.
Okay, we cut that out. Yeah.
But that's real. Yeah, you just download your little CD, have all the new songs. It was popping back then.
Yeah.
I can only say it sounds fun. I don't know for sure.
It was overrated. Don't worry. Spotify is definitely way better. But yeah, Lauren, tell us a little bit about like what exactly does that mean? Your job title, right? Like what exactly do you actually do?
Right. So, I think, and it's definitely something, this is a new department for me in this job. I actually started in March, which we'll get into later. But it's actually a different department from the job I had before. So definitely still in the learning process. But I would say, like, from my experience so far, it's a lot of just making sure that, these partners they're aware of all the releases that are coming and working really closely with them for every like marketing opportunity. So, you know, let's take I feel like each partner kind of has their specific opportunities that they have. Like, you know, Spotify, their platform, they have strong like options for visibility. You know, obviously they have like your typical like playlist covers, but they also have like these things called like mobile home banners, which is like targeted towards certain listeners. And it's like a little square that you get in your homepage. So let's say you're a really big fan of Ariana Grande and like you're one of those targeted listeners, when her album comes out, you'll get it on your homepage. And like, you know, obviously for someone like Ariana, it's like everyone knows when she has an album out, but a lot of our like more developing acts are just mid kind of buzzing, but hasn't completely broken yet. Like it's really useful because then like their listeners or people that have just listened to them before will like know when their new releases are out. But even like off-platform opportunities, so like all platforms have their own social media. They do like billboards, like Spotify always does the New Music Friday billboard in Times Square. And I know Amazon also has one like at the Beverly Center in LA. So, you know, all these partners have like different opportunities for artists to get more like exposure to potential audiences. And I think it's just working with those partners to secure it for our artists. And it's, you know, it's interesting to see like each platform and the unique way and like how they can tie these in, because, you know, for Apple Music, I love just like the process of locking in looks for Apple Music One, which is like their more radio side of the platform. So like even we'll handle like facilitating, you know, like the formerly Beats One, but now Apple Music One interviews, or like R&B Now Radio or New Music Daily Radio, like all those looks that come in. So it's definitely really interesting because I think, you know, streaming, it's relatively new still to like the history of labels and the industry, I feel. And it's definitely a space that like everyone is adapting to and like figuring out how we can, you know, be servicing well, I think for the partners, every day they're figuring out how can we service consumers. And for us, it's like, how do we service our artists? And I feel like in this space specifically, it's really fast paced and like adapting constantly. So
that gives us a good understanding, just because, you know, I think there's a lot of students out there and people who are interested in the music industry, and they don't know like what it even means to work at a label, right? You know, like A&R, you know, like managers and things of that nature, but what are the other realms of people who work in there who are able to like make things happen? Just by hearing that, the level of detail that goes into someone clicking play is so important, right? Like if that, like for someone who like even Linda, right, who's been there like listening to Spotify since middle school, you have a complete understanding of how Spotify works for you and like and all of that stuff. So you can take a lot of that information and bring that into like interviews and things of that nature when you're trying to apply to these companies. So very
yeah, for sure. And I think also to the point of like, yeah, I think at times it can be really difficult to like understand how labels are structured until like you've interned at one, or you know someone close that, you know, has worked at one. But yeah, it's definitely really interesting to see how it's like a bunch of tiny pieces coming together to actually like roll something out, like an artist release or something. But yeah, that's something I definitely like realized, and it took me even a while because I was at a label before that. I feel like it took me like a year into my job to even understand other departments and like grasp what they're actually doing. But yeah, it's definitely like something that takes time to like learn the ropes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like especially me, the avid Spotify user, I can kind of see how the platform has definitely like transformed itself and has added like so many more components, especially with like the recent Blackpink album, and even with Billie Eilish's first album, they have all those like welcome to the learning experience, the listening experience things. And I just keep thinking how like nothing is just by chance on Spotify, and how somebody has to go behind the scenes and like articulately plan all these things out. And it's just kind of like amazing to think about.
Yeah. And it's really interesting to see too, because I feel like when every time they do those like special experiences, and even if they, you know, might be like on a website or something, it's always very effectively driving back to the platform and driving back to like the artist presence on the platform, which is just like super smart. But yeah, they always like execute everything super to like the very high standard of their brand, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, so looking back, now that we've kind of like established the structure of your current position, Lauren, I was wondering if you could discuss and share with us some of your current favorite projects that you've worked on, or some of your favorite like cornerstone projects that you have worked on in the past.
Yeah, I would say top of mind, because I feel like it's really easy to just think about the things that like have happened every like what's coming out the week that it's coming out. But we just had this super new artist, Fouché. She's like an alternative R&B artist, and she just dropped a track Tuesday called Single as Fuck. And yeah, she's super talented. She actually, her story is so interesting because she wrote the hook to a song that went viral on TikTok. It was called Deep End Freestyle by this artist, Sleepy Hollow. And it's like a Brooklyn drill record. And she had to like come out and be like, oh, hey guys, like I created the hook. And then like that also like that video went viral. And then she released her own version of that track with the hook that she had originally created. And then that song went viral on TikTok and gave her like her own moment. And it's so interesting because it like blew up in Eastern Europe, TikTok, but then like actually spread globally and to the US, which is like so interesting to me, because it's like, when are we like, oh, this is like cool in Eastern Europe, bet like we're on it. So yeah, she's been just such a super interesting story to me, and we just dropped a follow-up track. And I just embody the spirit of being single as fuck. So at the moment, and yeah, we have a lot of cool like activations planned around it. She has like a hotline where she's giving like pre-recorded dating and breakup advice. And like the visualizer for it is like basically her in an infomercial, like retro theme. So I definitely love like all of those projects that there's like a really strong creative theme behind it. So yeah, she's definitely top of mind. I'm trying to think what else. I'm like, there's so many things, but honestly, I would say one of the things that I really love is when we get like our developing acts, you know, one of their first looks on the DSP side. I feel like that's always really rewarding, because you know, from our perspective, like we really believe in an artist and we want them to like get the shine that they deserve. And for them, it's like a lot of them have been at it for a very long time, and it's like great to see the recognition, or like understand that they have like a whole backing of, you know, all these people working for them. But yeah, so I definitely love working a lot with the developing artists we have. But yeah, I'm gonna have to think of some more. I think I'm just blurring the lines with like what's out, what's not out, who is like announced as signed and who is not announced. So that's why I'm like kind of sweating in my mind. But yeah, so I will come back to that with another answer after filtering it a bit.
I have a question, because we've had a few people in the music industry, and like, even when I think of the music industry and being able to work in entertainment, every time I'm able to work on stuff or even have conversations with people like you, it's like, yo, like, this shit is cool, right? Like, this is like stuff that like when you were a kid, you were like, I really want to do this, right? So for you, do you recall your like, oh shit moment where you were in the music industry and working in that space?
Yeah. Oddly enough, I would say one of the moments that happened was when, so at my last company, I worked at Atlantic Records, and we did like a really iconic plaque presentation in the office for Missy Elliott. And she came to the office. She was like so cool and amazing. And like our stage area is pretty big. I mean, it fits like maybe like 250 people, but it's not like that big. And so it's just like Missy Elliott is just there being celebrated. And she's like the most like sweetest, humble person. She was like so touched that we all came to like witness this like 10 times platinum plaque presentation. She was like actually touched herself. And I was so confused. I was like, bitch, like what? You are a legend. How like, of course. And I think that was one of the moments where I was just like, wow, the Missy Elliott is like 20 feet away from me. This is crazy.
Wow, that's crazy. And how far were you removed from like college at that point?
Pretty not far removed at all. So I am still in my mid-20s. I graduated in 2017 and I started at Atlantic literally like a month after I graduated and was there for almost 3 years. So yeah, like that's been my first job out of college.
Wow, very cool. I'll pass it
Yeah.
back. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mo, but yeah, like looking back at how like your career has blossomed since you left college, did you enter college with like a set role in mind that I'm gonna break into the music slash entertainment industry, or did something happen during your like this very transitional period, self-discovering time in college where you were like gravitating towards this career path instead?
Mm-hmm. Definitely the latter. I did not enter the industry till super late. And I think that's actually something that like towards the beginning I was a little insecure about because, you know, especially at NYU, there's a really big like music business scene there. So I definitely like toward my later years felt behind a bit. But yeah, I would say so. I actually majored in finance in the business school at NYU. And the reason being, I just was like, I have no idea what I want to do. And finance seems just like a stable thing. And like that was something that my parents knew. So I was just like, alrighty then. And I went to NYU because I went to boarding school outside of Boston and I was just like, I need to be in a city, like fuck a campus. I need to be like out somewhere in civilization, not like suburban Massachusetts. So yeah, so I was like, let me just go to NYU and figure it out. And I think my first internship was actually kind of music related. It was at the startup Next Big Sound. And it kind of was like a data analytics platform for artists. So it would kind of like, it would collect, you know, all their social data, like all the engagement data, YouTube, like streams and all of that stuff. And it would like basically come up with like different scores for like predicting an artist breaking or just like their trajectory. But it was very like technology data focused. And I think they actually ended up getting acquired by Pandora. But at the time it was just like the small office in Flatiron I interned at. And then that was cool, but I think I want to stay more like finance related, but I definitely like was very curious about music. So I interned next at a really small accounting company, super small. My friend actually put me on to this position. And basically they were like the business manager. So like a business manager in in like music. They're basically like they handle all the artists like finances and like I think it depends what level they engage with their client, but like the place I interned, they handle all their like personal and professional finances for their like artist clients. So I interned there, but it was super like back office and I was just like doing a lot of just like minor like accountant or just like financy things with them, and just like finance handling, you know, that like more business related things. And then I ended up, oh yeah, and then I randomly interned at Credit Suisse. in their technology department, because I was like, let me just like try this like finance but also tech related space. So I did that for a summer, actually before my senior year. And I was just like, absolutely not. No, this is not. This is definitely a dub for me at least. And I was like, let me not do this and see myself out. So then I was like going into my senior year, pretty nervous, pretty like, I don't know what's going on. And everyone, because I went to like an undergrad business program, everyone like had their offers from like consulting firms or investment banks. And I was just like, yeah, I'm just floating out here. And then I interned at Billboard and the Hollywood Reporter my senior fall. And I was in the data analytics department. So we supported the advertising and brand partnerships department. So basically we would gather a lot of like audience data of these two properties, and it would just help provide information to the people that were selling advertising and also booking brand partnerships. And that's kind of how I got introduced to brand partnerships, because Billboard would do a lot of really cool like branded programs where they would work with a brand and then book an artist for a campaign like for that brand, but it was also through Billboard. And I really loved the supervisor that kind of like gave me projects to work on in that arena. And then my internship ended, and then I just was like, okay, I think I want to try interning in music. It's like my senior spring. It's really the last opportunity I have, at least like for, I'm kind of hesitant to say this because really everyone has their own path, and like especially in music, it's like not a linear path. Like some people take as much time as they need and they end up like, it's like there's just so many different situations. But for me, just coming from the first generation Korean American immigrant household, I was like, well shit, this is the last semester I can have an internship for credit unpaid, because after that, that's not gonna fly for me, for my parents. So I was like, let me just do this label thing and see if I like it. So I interviewed to intern in their brand partnerships department my senior spring, and I loved it. Like, it was great. I really loved that it kind of straddled between like working with a lot of brands and agencies, marketing agencies. Mo, you know that life very well. But then also like being in the building of the label and working really closely with artists and managers and bringing them like paid opportunities. I love like being in between it, because I feel like at that point I was still like, I don't want to be like in the music industry. I just want to be like a little bit, but also kind of tied to business and like brands, like outside this crazy world of music, even though brands is also its own crazy world. But yeah, so I really love that. And then totally by coincidence, the supervisor who was the assistant in the department at the time actually switched jobs internally. And then like 2 weeks after I graduated, I got a call and they were like, oh, why don't you like interview for this job and see if you want it? And then it just moved really fast. And then like 2 weeks later, I was at my desk, started my job. But wow. I say that all to say that it really was not like, I'm doing this, let's get this bread. I was like going all over the place, had no idea.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was just kind of amazing to kind of sit back and hear you go like, this happened. And as like a sophomore right now in college, I kind of relate to that feeling of everybody's going in straight lines and I'm just like curving back and forth and back and forth. But yeah.
Yeah. And I think it kind of happened that way because every step I took, I like learned something more about what was available and also what I wanted to do. So I feel like over time, I like also kind of gradually figured out how to be a person. And I still figure this out too. But it's just like how to be more the type of person of like, this is what I want versus like, these are the things I don't want. Because that's a great place to start. But I feel like I always was like, I kind of want to also know like what I want, not just like what I absolutely cannot handle,
Yeah. I think one thing that's so interesting about your story is what seemed to move you and put you into the position you are now is this sense of curiosity, right? And a lot of people kind of sometimes run away from curiosity because so many people in our lives, and sometimes even our parents, can just be like, this is the route to go, right? Like I'm pretty, I'd say I'm pretty second generation, but close to really first generation immigrants from West Africa. And they're just like, get a job, like make sure you can take care of yourself and handle your bills and all of that stuff. And I thought I was going to college to be a OBGYN, and that is not what I am now. So I'm very far removed from that. But yeah, to that point, you just go with the stuff that you think works, but then like your curiosity drove you to like, oh, let me try this or let me check this out. And internships are so important to do that because once you get into the real world, you got bills, you got loans to pay back, you got all this thing. So like curiosity should definitely still drive you. And I still think after you graduate, you can still work through curiosity. It's just a lot tougher. While you're in college, you have a lot more free time and less expenses. And I think that's one thing to really tap in.
Yeah. And something I'm kind of curious about is because for me, I always felt that I only could have like figured my shit out if I was in New York. Like that was the reason why, because I could intern in the fall and spring and just do multiple internships year round. But I'm curious to know, and I don't know if Linda, you would know, but if like internships can, like that's not really a criteria anymore because everyone's just all over the place. So I feel like this could be also like a good opportunity for a lot of people to like intern somewhere they typically might not be able to because they're not physically in that office, like in the area of the office.
Yeah, definitely. Well, even applying for this internship, it was good for me because it was like all virtual, and I currently cannot be back near Chicago right now. Like I'm back home, and I think with quarantine starting, a lot of us, like my peers and I, are starting to notice that companies are not forced, but being kind of pushed into making their internships more online, and that gives us like a more exploring opportunity where we can look at, oh, like this internship from like Wisconsin or something from another state we've never like imagined that we could be qualified to apply, because some of the internships I was looking at pre-COVID like really requires you to be there like to sit at a desk. But I think right now it's just like a very good opportunity for us to like push the boundaries and look at what we fit right now in all sorts of industries.
Yeah,
so it's been exciting and fun.
Nice.
And I think that's just one thing that students should take advantage of, especially the way everything is going right now, that your next winter internship is probably going to be virtual, and maybe your next summer internship will probably be virtual even again. So I feel like, especially for me, like I was from Minneapolis, Minnesota. So like this idea of entertainment is not really in Minneapolis like that. So people from smaller cities should definitely take advantage of all of these opportunities, because I've seen so many record labels and people post about internships and virtual opportunities, and that's your way to just get into those places. And then when things open back up, you got references and you have opportunities to really tap into these other bigger cities and bigger markets.
I also really like how quarantine has like normalized talking to like new people virtually, because I feel like before, if I was like, can I hop on a video chat with you or FaceTime you, to like someone new and kind of in a professional context, would be like just odd. Like the vibes would be weird and it'd be like, what's the vibe here? But now I can totally do that. And like, or people like approach me, and it's nice that I feel like people are just a little definitely more willing to just connect, make new connections, because we all miss real life socializing.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of like socializing and being on call right now, I'm curious to see, like, as we made the switch into quarantine, how does your like daily life kind of go on a work day? And are you making a lot of calls? I'm suspecting yes, but like how does your daily schedule play out?
Yeah, so I would say, yeah, definitely a lot of calls. And I feel like in the office, there are a lot of in-person meetings as well. But I think an interesting thing about these calls is that um, it's hyper focused, which is good. But I think something that I always notice about like video conference is that only one person can talk at a time, which is like good because that's like it gives some structure. But I the thing that I actually kind of miss though is like the side conversations or just glances or like, small like walking into a conference room with someone catch up that you would get. So yeah, that's just been something that like I've noticed a lot during quarantine. But I would say, yeah, definitely just a lot of calls. Because everything has to be done virtually now. And I feel like honestly, most of my job at the moment um, is doing calls and emails and texts because yeah, it's just kind of forced to be that way. And I think for us and like the company, at least to my knowledge, like we just err on the side of caution in terms of just like allowing, I don't know like the exact rules, but I don't think like a lot of people are traveling for work or like go like I feel like before a lot of people like extra people would go to shoots just to like get some hang time with the team or something, but like now it's very like everything is very closely monitored and only essential people need to be, at a certain time or place. But yeah, so it's just really all for my laptop, which evidently just fries on me. I think it's like my laptop is sick of quarantine. It's just like, bro, you need to like calm down and stop using me so much.
That's so interesting. And for you, like post or previous to COVID, right? What
Mhm.
did everything kind of look like for you? Because I'm sure that was like, for those people who don't know, New York energy is a lot of like running around, meetings here and there, chatting with people. Can you kind of like bring us into that world and tell us a little bit about what that New
You're
York
gonna
energy
make me
was like?
cry reliving these days. No, I would say yeah, New York is so fun pre-COVID. Especially I think just working in music and being someone who like is fresh out of college, I really took advantage of it because I was just kind of like, I work really hard at my day job. So at night, I just want to like go to a show, get drinks with like a friend. And like, I think also a thing I really love about the industry is like how willing people are to connect. So for me, like when I entered the industry, I had the privilege of like meeting a lot of just like, chopping up with the assistants at Atlantic, but also like getting to know assistants at other labels or like talent agencies that do like all the live music or just like anywhere. Cause I feel like we all are fresh out of college and we were just like, we're all in these like jobs in the music industry, but don't like really know what we want to do. So like we would talk to each other about all our other jobs and be like, kind of like glean information from everyone else. But yeah, spent many a night at SOBs, Baby's All Right, all the usual suspects. And actually, I forgot to mention, but one other internship I did was with this company, Move Forward Music, that booked like the venues that I mentioned, booked a lot of just like smaller venue shows in New York. So I would always just go to their shows too, and they would book like really up and coming acts. And yeah, that promoter is really interesting because they traditionally pre-COVID book, like Baby's All Right and SOBs, and a lot of like artists that pop off play those rooms at the start of their career. So like I know Move Forward, they booked like Kendrick show at SOBs. They booked like Rico Nasty at Baby's All Right, which is like a 250 cap room. So yeah, it's just like so many good shows and just, you know, I feel like pre-COVID, I would kind of do the thing where like I went out during the week, but then during the weekend, I was like at home in bed by 10 or like drinking with friends at someone's place because I was just like, I'm going out during the week. But it definitely like was weird because I felt off cycle from like everyone else that's not in music, like the rest of society. But, what can you do?
No, that's so real. So when it comes to self-care, right? I think that's one thing that it's really tough to balance. And self-care is such a journey, right? You know, some people that's face masks, some people, like for me, that's meditation and prayer in the morning before I even get into this fast-paced world. But for you, right, you talk about, you know, hanging out late and then going to these shows and connecting with these people during the week. What did self-care look like? What does self-care look like for you in your journey?
Yeah. Well, for me, I would say pre-COVID, like I always kind of considered myself an extroverted introvert where like I can be social and am social, but also like my time alone is to re-energize myself. So I feel like for me, that was like in the form of just like weekends or, you know, yeah, like honestly, the weekends I would just really turn off from work. Like I had the luxury of doing that most times and hang out with just like my very core group of friends that, you know, we can talk about anything. It's not just like, oh, I'm reaching out to you to connect, which like I love doing, but you know, there's a time where you just want to hang out with just the gang. So I feel like for me, it's a lot of that. And I think also I just like one of the more just like practical things is like I'm not that great at long distance, but I really enjoy like jogging through the city, especially in Brooklyn. So like that's something that I've just like always done that I really enjoyed. And it's like a good time to listen to new music and like have time, like do something while it's so bad, but like it's an excuse to like listen to new music that I like just need to sit down and listen to. But yeah, just like running around the city and it definitely like was a good energy release. But I would say now in quarantine, I would say in the beginning, like because you're always at work kind of because you're working from home, like that can be really draining. So it's just like really, you know, catching yourself when you should log off or like realizing that you don't always have to respond to everything super fast because you're at home, like just being able to better prioritize what is really urgent and what isn't. Um, and also just I've been reading books. So that's been like a really good release because it allows me to like focus on something that's completely unrelated to working and just being in lockdown. So yeah.
Yeah, I really need to pick up a book again. I miss having the time to read a book. But like switching kind of topics to like a personal question I had in mind is that you mentioned that you know you come from a Korean American immigrant background and that your parents were keen on you pursuing finance when you first entered college. So I want like for me being like a Chinese American immigrant family and then my mom being like you should do law and my dad's like you should be a doctor and I'm like I don't want to do any of
I
that.
still get that talk.
Um,
Not even gonna
yeah. So
play.
how did they react and how did you kind of navigate your relationship with your
Yeah.
parents now pursuing kind of full time into the entertainment industry?
Right. I would say they just like are very interesting people where like they would never deter me or like something I was very passionate or convicted on, but they would, it's like this weird dynamic where they are like on board and might not like remember what I do all the time and ask me multiple times throughout the year, but I feel like once they just like see the progress and like when I explain things to them, I'm very like try to explain my thought process and like the logic that I'm putting into the decisions I'm making. And I feel like, you know, when I can explain that cohesively, they just are like a little like they're just understanding and they're like, yeah, we want you to like, especially while you're young and like, you know, you're just living your life getting started, like you should really just try something that you're super convicted about. But I think also it like took myself a lot of just like bucking up and being like, no, this is what I want. Because I think for me, like, I never really did, you know, through high school and college, I clearly just like didn't know what I wanted to do. So a lot of times I would just be super susceptible to like what I think I should do. But I think it was like once I convinced myself, like, no, this is what I'm want to do, and this is what I want to like tell people I want to do. Like it wasn't until that actualized that like other people got on board, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's like advice that a lot of people can relate to. And kind of looking back from where you're right now, standing in your career, what's like the one tip that you can give to someone who's trying to get into entertainment industry that they can do right away, like tomorrow,
Yeah.
they can wake up and do?
Right. Well, I would say for me, like I was always really confused as to like how to get to know people in the industry. So, whether it's honestly like finding someone on LinkedIn or finding someone through like an article you read that is like giving really good advice. I mean, I would say to everyone like use your judgment on like who that is specifically, but and be smart about that. But I would say like it never hurts to just like reach out to people and like try to make a connection, because I think especially for college students, it's like whenever someone reaches out to me, I'm always like, yeah, because I was literally in like in that person's position, or probably less prepared or like aware of what I needed to do. So I always will like talk to someone, and like I feel like that goes to the sometimes it goes to the top, where like people that are way more experienced than me also remember that time in their career as well. And I think also just, yeah, staying, honestly, like this is more just like a studious habit thing, but like staying on top of industry news, because I think there's just so much information you can find online. Like even though you may not necessarily be able to like learn what every department of label is doing, like even just like understanding different companies or who the big players are, like all of that stuff is literally on billboard.com or like spread across different outlets. So I definitely encourage people to like, if it's something they're really passionate about or they want to learn on, definitely just like regularly check that out. And honestly, like more on just like the personal tip, I would say something that like I still tell myself and struggle with, to be honest, as like an Asian American woman, I always have to like tell myself, don't be afraid to take up space and make noise. Like you just, and it's so like something so simple. And I think, there are certain people that don't have to tell themselves that and do it naturally. But like for me, I have to tell myself that every day. And I think that's something that like I wish I like carried with me since I was young.
I think right now is so important, where you could really connect with anybody because everybody's at home, or if they are traveling, they're just traveling half the time that they probably would normally. But you talked about staying on top of industry news, right? And I think we say that in the industry because it's important to us, but like, can you give us maybe a real world example of how that applies to your job or what you're trying to do in the future?
Well, for me, I think it helps figure out like what the jobs are, because for me, like even it wasn't until college I understood like labels do XYZ. Like they market an artist, they're distributing the music, they're like working it at radio, whatever. And then like I didn't even know there was a thing of like the live music industry, and like there are touring agencies that are part of like the Hollywood agencies like CAA, WME, UTA. Like I didn't even know like those were a thing. And then I didn't know there was like a thing called promoters that were booking all these shows and festivals and producing them and putting them on. And like I feel like it wasn't until I got into the habit of like seeing company names like AEG or Live Nation, or like even, when you read like I think like the Billboard Hip Hop R&B Power Players edition this year like just came out, but just reading those names I feel like is super helpful because there have been times like where I at my last job when I was assistant, like I feel like I could have a lot of like interesting conversation with my boss, or even ask her about things I was curious about, because I would ask specific things I was curious about. Like, we worked in brands and I would read about a brand partnership and I would be like, oh, like this brand client like just did this awesome campaign. Like I read about it in Ad Age or even Billboard, because they do brand stuff. And like, you know, sometimes I would be like, oh, like when's the last time we like caught up with them? Like, I think XYZ artist we have would be really great. So it's just like being aware of what's going around. I feel like just super helps inform your conversations. And especially as like a young person, like you haven't been around these names and conversations. Like you don't know these people personally. So it's good to just like start knowing who they are now. And it's also like, you never know, who like you meet when you're out, because for me, like for a long time I was really interested and still am in like live music and working specifically in that space. But when I was like going through that, I would make it a point to like know who the agents were. And then by the time I got in Atlantic, like I was like, okay, I'm at Atlantic now, like I need to do my thing here. But I would go to shows or like be friends with the agents that like I would read up on. And so that was like such a crazy moment to me, because it would be like the people that are booking all my favorite acts are like across the room at like whatever venue. But I could easily like, let's say I'm there with their assistant, or I just am like reaching out to them. I could just be like, oh my God, I'm like such a big fan of your work because you rep like XYZ client and I love their music and like you've done so much for them. And, you know, it really does help. Like honestly, thinking back to it now, there was an agent that I at a music festival saw that was standing near to me, and he had like he has this amazing roster I'm like such a big fan of. And I dead ass, I don't know like what possessed me, what like crazy spirit did, because I'm not this person at all. But I was like, I have to go up to him and be like, dude, I literally know so much about your career. Like I'm such like not even a fan, but like I just admire it so much. And like, I'd love to like connect and just for you to like know who I am. And it went fine. Like it went great. And like, this person's awesome and such a like nice, friendly person that like, I went to his office and like, we got to get coffee later that week. And like, yeah, so I would definitely say it can help a lot. And like, it just helps you inform conversations and make more effective connections and like all of that stuff.
Oh, that's great advice. I feel like that's what we need to hear is like, just try it. Go out there, talk to that person, do your research. I always say like, at least come with at least one thing you know about that person, bare minimum. Know at least one thing you know about them, and then appreciate them, and then have a ask, right? Not an ask of like a job or anything of that nature, but learn, right? And don't go into it looking for a exchange. Go into it looking for an opportunity to learn and grow from that. And because of being authentically you, that person might think of someone to connect you with, or that person might know of a job or an internship, or maybe 3 years down the line, that person connects you with a job that will change your career. So always go into it trying to make a purposeful connection first. And then the universe or God, for me, will do everything and put you into that space. So
for sure. And I feel that, you know, even if this person doesn't like end up giving you something down the road, even, it's like you might one day be working with them very closely and they'll just be like, oh shit, it's that person that like reached out to me, like I know them, that's dope. And so yeah, I feel like that's like straight like point on point, like you hit it in the head for sure.
And my last question, my favorite question, has to do with music, and you're in the music industry, so who better to answer this question? But for you personally, what, going off of like your mood, maybe for the last week, maybe 2 weeks, what maybe song or album or artist has been in your rotation that really embodies you and what you're feeling?
So single AF. No, I'm just kidding. But honestly, though, I'm super excited about Fouché, and I think, you know, she's definitely one to watch out for. And yeah, honestly, this is like my guilty pleasure, but you're just catching me at the time where I've been listening to my guilty pleasure intensely. But I'm a really big Kid Laroi fan, and he just dropped his deluxe album last week. But he's just like this Aussie kid who has like the most interesting like definitely post Juice World era because he's like his protege. But yeah, he had like one of my favorite albums of this year, and it's just really sad boy, like moody teen music, but it just like strikes a chord, honestly. So I've been listening to that. But he is very versatile because he will like bounce between, you know, more hip hop, but then like also like that like hip hop pop lane, but also just like more like alternative, like just with a guitar music. So he's definitely, I'm just like, yeah, I'm down for this as much as I kind of don't want to admit, but because he's definitely like someone for the teens, but like me now, I'm like, oh, he's dope. But yeah, I would say, I mean, I could talk about this forever, but I really love also this artist, Kirby. She's like an amazing singer-songwriter. But she has dropped a lot of like her own releases recently. And she had like one of my favorite songs off the last Insecure soundtrack. But she's just like super soulful R&B singer that has like amazing, just like creative and super polished visuals all the time. And then who else? Not so current, but so I think I mentioned this in like a previous, like maybe the little thing that I had submitted, but one of the artists that I think had like such a great year is Don Toliver. And like he's had such a great year. I feel like I'm really happy to see like how much he's blown up and like all the songs that have become hits. Because he'll always like hold a special part because he was the first like brand deal I as like a coordinator like did fully. And so that was, I think, last summer when we did that. We did like a really small Reebok activation, but it was so great to like see his project come out this year, and it did so well, and he's so talented. So I'm glad he like is having his moment.
That's dope. That's super dope.
Yeah. But I'm also, I mean, I have to ask as well, like what you guys are listening to.
Linda, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I have my Spotify pulled up right now. Mm-hmm. And I've been listening to this one artist. He's from South Korea. His name is DPR Live. He's like a rapper. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. But this year
he's dope.
Yeah, he's very, very dope.
Like creative crew is really cool.
Yeah. He's like the rapper of this DPR gang, which is like this company that he created. And you know, like a little backstory about him, he like really wants to create like a motivational story through like music, and his two like career path that he was like, how am I going to inspire people? I can either become a musician or I can be a motivational speaker, and he decided to become a musician. So all of his like the entire team is like amazing, but he tries to like paint a story with his music. And his recent album is Anybody Out There, which he dropped this year, is about like this man who's really struggling on Earth, who ends up into like space and trying to like discover who he is. And he wrote this during like a very like anxious period of his life where he didn't know like what he's doing. And I've like recently been listening to it a lot during quarantine, kind of to like regain my confidence and kind of like restore that like inner confidence, inner peace, because it's like you can hear the whole like storyline behind this album of like this man who has so much troubles but ends up like going to space and like then being free. And then like his last song I think is called No Rescue Needed, which means like he's completed his journey and he's doing great in space. And I wish I was in space right now too.
Some days, man. Some days are tough.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. It seems like a good out. But yeah, I actually his creative and his visuals are always like really great. I know the visuals for that rollout were just like so polished, and it literally looked like he was in a space film. Like that was some expensive shit, I know.
Yeah, his whole thing with this album was trying to do like for somebody who cannot go to space right now, like trying to go to space within his music. And his music videos are like, the guy who does them, I think his name is Christian, he's just like amazing. The music videos are amazing.
Yeah,
I can geek about them all day. Yeah.
Who's the artist again? DPR what?
DPR Live. So their company is called DPR. So everybody who like works with him is called DPR something. So the guy who like sings and like writes all the songs, his name is DPR Live. And then the guy who does like their productions called DPR Cream. And then the guy who does their music videos, but is also like a singer himself, is called DPR Ian. I can send you all the information later, Mo. I think you should.
I love how
you would really
we're like putting him
enjoy
onto
listening.
like indie / kind of mainstream Korean music right now. I love
You
it.
know,
That is dope.
I love this, and I also have been really trying to tap into Korean dramas. And there was one that one of our interns put me onto, actually in an interview. And I was like, oh my gosh! And then I started watching the Romero, and it was changing my life. And then the soundtrack to it was crack, and I was like, yo, this shit is fire.
They know how to like really just trigger you with like how they use music and dramas. Like they'll play the same song like 30 times in an episode, but every time I'm just like
the tears.
Yeah.
It was so amazing. And yeah, I love that show. I gotta remember what the name of it is.
Yeah, now I'm curious to which one it is. It had like such a big impact on you.
Jay put me onto it. We had a really good conversation in Jay's interview, and then she was like, yeah, check out this. And I was like, Meryl, we gotta watch this tonight. And we watched it. It was great. It was long though. It was really long. The cinematography in there was amazing. And there was just like nothing that I've really seen before. And I was like, yo.
Yeah, K-dramas are very long. They're like,
yeah,
you really have to like sit down and watch it.
Gotta be patient. But it was worth it. My music choice before we wrap up, I'm really into Heady One from the UK. I've gone down a very dark, deep UK hole. And then the other artist is Dutch Avelli, who I'm really into. He's Stefflon Don's brother. And yeah, it's really interesting. So I've loved it. And he just dropped a mixtape, I think, like a few days ago or last week.
Oh shit. I'll check it out for sure. Did you like the Drake cosign?
On Heady?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I got introduced. So I saw that, and then I watched a bunch of reaction videos, and then I understood the bars that Drake put into there, and I said, wow, Drake is forever. I don't know if he's, Drake is the greatest, because people don't realize from just like, I'm big on marketing and advertisement, that Heady One record came out right after like Pop Star and all of that stuff with DJ Khaled. So he literally set, the US on fire. Then he came to the UK, set that on fire, and just gave him straight bars.
Like,
and
I have this globe on lock, not just this country.
Right. And I was like, wow, Drake is, I didn't even know how the impact, but like even just like the slang, and it just takes a lot. And he was pronouncing everything correct. Like it takes a lot to just be able to do that. So shout out to Drake. Even though shout out to Drake for that.
Killing it.
Well, Lauren, we just want to thank you so much for being a part of the Have a Map podcast, taking directions from you. Skr. So it was lovely. We always give our guests a round of applause. So we just want to appreciate you.
Thank you. Round of applause to you guys as well.
Thank you. It was a great conversation.